Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved?
Support.
Any discussion, changes in agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to public participation. Seeing none, we will move right on to the budget hearing. I'd like to welcome Linda Drizga.
Hello. Tonight we are going to present, I gotta get this. Oh. Okay, John, let's see if this works. It's not going.
There you go. It just went on. You got your transition. There it goes.
Clicking it. There we go. Jeez. Okay, for tonight's budget presentation, this is for the proposed budget presentation for 23-24 school district budget. This is the agenda for the presentation. We're going to have a budget overview. Then we're going to take a look at our local property taxes and move into our summer 2023 tax levy. Then we're going to take a look at our revenue and expenditures, the assumptions, and the projections for next year. And then we'll take a look at some charts and historical data. And finally, we'll look at our self-insured health insurance data. So for the budget overview, just to go through a few things, the district does contain multiple funds, with the general fund being the largest of those funds. And effective in the 2011-2012 school year, GASB statement number 54 was enacted, and the athletics is required to be part of that general fund budget. The other funds that we have include the state and federal funds, special services fund, or our cafeteria or food service, the debt fund, building and site funds, which is our capital projects fund, and then effective in the 2020-2021 year, GASB 84 was established, and the special revenues funds were created for the scholarship funds as well as the student activity funds. And that criteria was for identifying, who had the fiduciary responsibilities for those funds. Now, when we take a look at our local property taxes, we'll take a look at the non-homestead. That is tax collected on non-homestead property. That is an 18 mil property that is collected both in the summer and the winter, half of it in the summer, half of it in the winter, and it's used for general fund purposes. That millage was renewed in August of 2020 and will remain in effect through through the year ending 2030. Non-homestead property includes business and commercial, vacation or second homes, vacant lands, rental properties, but it does not include your primary residence. Hold harmless, that is property that includes all homestead properties, and that millage was also renewed at the same time the non-homestead was renewed in August of 2020 and will continue through 2030. That tax is based on our student count, and in July of 2021, our amount per student was reduced by the state of Michigan. We were at $585.63 per student. We are now at $305 per student. The state education tax, that is a 6 mil tax. That tax is only collected during the summer tax collection. All taxpayers pay that tax, and that tax is distributed at the state level. So the local government or our township will assess this tax as well as collect it. They send it up to Lansing, and then Lansing redistributes that tax based on the foundation grant allowance and then the number of students per district. We also have a sinking fund tax. The voters approved a 1.00 mil in March of 2020. That remains in effect for 5 years through December of 2024. We have a bond debt fund. We have 3 debt funds that are combined as a 1 debt retirement fund. We have a 2015 refunding bond at a 1.04 mil levy. That is an annual that will be split between the summer and the winter taxes. All three of these will be. The 2016 bond is a 2.02 mil, and the most recent bond that was passed in November of 2022 is a 2.53 mil, for a total debt millage of 5.59. And just as a point of reference, school districts may refund bonds for the purpose of saving the taxpayers' money, and the district has done that several times. So based on that information, our summer, or our July 2023 levy is comprised of the following. The state education tax, as I mentioned, that is on all property, and that is only taxed during the summer at a 6.0 mil. Then the local taxes, these are both taxed in the summer and the winter. The operating homestead, hold harmless, I should say, is, I think there's a question coming. Sorry. The hold harmless, that's on all property, that's 0.3572 mils. And then the operating non-homestead is 8.6428. That is a total operating millage of 9 mils. And again, that's taxed both summer and winter. Bond debt, that's levied on all property, 2.795, summer and winter. And then the sinking fund is also on all property at 0.4890. Now for the key assumptions for our revenue, I'll look at the state aid. We are projecting our number of students for the school year of 23-24 to be 1,550 students. That's a reduction of 47 students from our current 90-10 student count for the current fiscal year of 22-23. And as of today, the state has not passed a budget. So we, as a district, took a look at all three, the governor's proposal, the House proposal, and the Senate proposal, and we projected the state aid foundation allowance to increase to $9,550, which is about $400 per student increase for next year. That could change depending on, what gets passed. Hopefully, I'm hearing by Friday, but who knows? Other categorical revenue amounts, they're based on the 22-23 funding, except for our UAAL piece. That percentage went up from 6.65 to 6.89, which is a 0.24% increase. That the revenue is adjusted for that increase. Section 31A and Section 31AA funds were budgeted based on the governor's proposal. The revenue amounts of $267,775 and $31,608 respectively were budgeted based on our expected expenditures for those two funds. Section 31O, this is the last year for that grant, and the district is responsible for 67% of that. So the grant will cover 33% of the total costs, or what we're budgeting, $34,700. I do want to mention the assumption of the isolated school district amount that we are projecting that the Grosse Ile will receive. We are projecting $500,000, and that was in the Senate and the House proposals. It was not in the governor's. That is also in this budget. The enhancement millage, this is a renewal millage passed through the county. That renewal millage was passed in November of 2020. It's a 2 mil levy for 6 years, and that will continue through the fall of 2028. It is based on the number of students that we have. And with that renewal, that levy is now shared with public school academies. We are projecting the 23-24 millage at $350 per student. So our total millage revenue is projected at $542,500. And then the taxes, just to briefly go over what I just went over, the hold harmless there's a reduction in that from $585.63 to $305 per student. We also have federal and ISD grants, which ISD is our Wayne Risa and they also get federal funding that they filter through the districts. So we have Title I grants, $112,117 that we budgeted for. Title II, $19,543. Title III, $1,202. Title IV is budgeted at $10,000, and our IDEA, or for the special ed, is $470,000.
From those ISD ones, that comes through per student also then, different criteria?
There's different criteria for like IDEA. There's a formula that they compute, and it is based on students. It's also based on what the ISD receives, and then it filters down through, the districts. So we have ESSER grants. ESSER 2, we have a small amount of the summer school grant left that needs to be spent by September 30th of 2023. That amount is $45,250. And then ESSER 3 11T, that grant needs to be spent by September 30th of 2024. We have $843,846 left of that. Then we also have a literacy grant. Again, this is through Wayne Risa that they renewed this year for $112,000. Other income, miscellaneous income is projected to decrease based on our current information. Our athletic revenue is projected at $211,500, and all other revenues are budgeted based on the 22-23 amounts. So based on those assumptions, and I'm going to try and participation entry, admin fees if they're a sport that is not, school funded, if it's, and then it's also your participation fees. Head count, yep. So based on that, I'm going to try and zoom in on this last column here. The revenues, and the local taxes are budgeted at $1,954,75. Our athletic budget's $211,500 for a total local of almost $2.2 million. The intermediate source, or the enhancement millage, $542,500. And then our state sources, which includes the State Aid Foundation as well as other categoricals, that is estimated at $17,353,871. And then in the federal sources, which I discussed, were the title and the IDEA grants, $1,572,841. And the last is the incoming transfers, which is our consortiums, which include DCTC and our special ed consortium. Those revenues are estimated at $866,606 for a total revenue of $22,501,393. Okay, so we're going to get into the expenditures, and when you take a look at the last year, inflation was the key. And so these are just a couple little cartoons. The New Year's Eve ball going down 7, 8, 9, and the gentleman says, aren't they supposed to be counting down? And she says, nope, inflation. And then I ate a popsicle and ended up with $38 in lumber. So, and that's key with our bond. They've had those cost escalations, embedded in those budgets. So now we're going to take a look at our expenditure side. And the salaries and benefits, which makes up a 80 to 85% of our budget. The salaries and benefits expenditures are projected based on our current contractual obligations. Our insurance benefits, specifically our health care, that is projected to be increased by 7.2%. And that's based on our current claims information as well as information prepared by our third-party administrators. Cash in lieu, or what we call our opt-out for our Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's kept consistent with current information. Our dental insurance benefits, we increased the benefit last year to benefit district employees. And based on that increase, based on that election offer, Our dental increase is approximately 14.2%. Vision, disability, life, and workers' comp, those are budgeted amounts are consistent with the current information that we have provided by our district's third-party administrators. The MIPSRS blend, which is the retirement rate, that will increase for 23-24. Last year, it did not increase. The rate increase was at 28.23. It's going up to 31.34, which is a 3.11 increase. But also included in that, we take a look at the UAAL portion, which is the unfunded liability. For 23-24, that is going up to 16.89, as I mentioned in the revenue assumptions. So the total retirement benefits is a combined rate of 48.23%, or an increase of 3.35%. Supplies and materials, we're going to take a look at our curriculum budget. That's set at $125,000 based on the Board of Ed's recommendation. That has been the consistent recommended amount for a number of years. And if any of that is unused, that gets put towards the next year's budget. That won't come out until after the audit gets completed. The building supply budgets, we're projecting those based on our 22-23 school year, and athletic expenditures are projected at $686,300. Purchase services, our utilities expenditures were increased by 7.5%. That's based on our current usage as well as price increases. Our property and casualty liability insurance costs for the next year are estimated at 20% increase. Legal fees we're keeping consistent with our prior year's budgeted amounts of $75,000. And federal grant expenditures must match our federal grant awards or the revenue. So having said that, the expenditures, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here, and we'll go. The basic instruction, which includes elementary, middle school, high school, our summer school, and camp kindergarten, those total $9,736,575. And then the added needs, that cost is projected for next year is $3,200,891 for a total instruction cost of $12,937,466. The next line is our pupil services, which is our guidance, occupational therapy, psychologist, social work, and speech. That projected cost is $1,943,935. Then we have instructional services, which is the curriculum director, literacy coach, media para. That projected cost $1,013,897. Then we have general administration, $739,360. And then school administration, that projected cost $1,454,105. And then the business services, that projected cost $431,180. Operations and maintenance, $2,261,975. Transportation, $1,161,655. Let me go back. And try and zoom that in on the bottom part here. And we have central services, which is our human resources, tech, and pupil accounting, $709,805. Miscellaneous of $7,650. Athletics, $686,300. This $9,571 is indirect cost. So our total expenditures for next year projected to be $23,356,944. Next slide, we're going to take a look at our estimated final fund balance for the school year of 22-23. We have a total final budget of revenue of $23,699,401. Total expenditures, including indirect costs, $25,174,855. Our expenditures exceed our revenues by almost $1.5 million. So our June 30th, 2023 fund balance is projected to be $3,341,424. I do want to note that we had a restricted amount of $162,800 that was reserved for health, our health insurance swings. That will be used up with this, in this fiscal year. So what that does, it brings our unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of expenditures down to 13.28, and as a percentage of revenue, down to 14.1%. When we take a look at a breakdown of our revenues for this current fiscal year, the bulk of the revenue is our state aid, roughly 78%. And then our local revenue is at 1.9 million, and federal's at 1.6. Transfers in are 835,000. Athletics is 250,000. And then the enhancement millage is 559,600. Okay, it doesn't show the bottom. See, now my amounts aren't showing there now. Okay, what I wanted to show here for the estimated 22-23 expenditures, and you have that in front of you. The biggest amount of our expenditures is our salaries and benefits at roughly, for this year, 81%. And then the rest of the 18% is split between purchase services, supplies, capital outlay, other fees, and then purchase services. Correct. Mhm. Right, that salary and benefits is no longer there, so. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at what our projected fund balance will be for next year based on the assumptions and projections that we just went over. Our total revenue, as mentioned, $22,501,393. Our total expenditures, including our indirect costs, $23,356,944. And then what that does is our expenses are greater than our revenues by $855,551, dropping our fund balance next June down to $2,485,873. Now, noting that at the end of this year, we used the restricted amount of $162,800 for our health insurance. We're also going to supplement that for the next year at $218,000. And that's based on what our current health insurance claims are right now. So what that does is our unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of expenditures will go down to 9.71%. By next June, and as a percentage of revenue, 10.08%. The revenues, again, the bulk of our revenues is our state aid at 77%, and then it's split between federal, our transfers in, athletics, local, and the enhancement millage. Yeah, I don't know what it is with this. Again, you guys have that in front of you. The salaries and benefits estimated for next year is roughly about 82%, leaving 18% for purchase services, repairs, supplies, capital outlay, and other fees. We'll take a look at some historical trends and some charts here. The fund balance trend is our first chart that we want to look at, and we date back to 2005. We were at $2,247,000, and we are projected at the end of this year to be $2,485,873. We were a deficit district in the year of 2016, but that following year we got out of deficit, and the bulk of that was from the enhancement millage. Okay, this is just kind of a revenue and expenditure bar graph that shows revenues as the blue bar, and then the expenditures as the purple bar. And just kind of show the last couple years, this current year and next year, our expenditures are exceeding our revenues. And we look at the state aid foundation allowance for the last few years, last 12 years, I should say. We've only increased $1,226, which is roughly about almost 15% over the last 12 years, which is a little over 1% per year, which that doesn't even keep up with inflation. So, and again, we're projecting that foundation allowance to be $9,550 for this next school year. Student population trends, again, we start in 2009, 2010, we were at 1845, went up a little bit, and we have been continuously losing students. So from 1845 to what we're projecting next year, that's almost a $300 decrease. And over the last 2 years, it's been about 100 students. This chart shows our retirement costs, and that is made up of both the two pieces, the retirement cost of 31.34 and then the UAAL of 16.89 for a total retirement cost of 48.23. And on the revenue side, we show the 16.89%. Only those wages that are eligible. So there are some wages that do not, incur this cost. Last two slides are going to be our health insurance. This first slide is the health insurance from July through December. And what we do, this slide you guys see every month. The top portion is for our budget. And then that bottom portion includes all of our claims plus all the costs per month. And then we show whether or not we're favorable or unfavorable compared to our budget. This last slide is the health insurance from January through May. So we have a year-to-date amount in that last column. And let me just kind of zoom in. Our current claims, our current year-to-date claims are almost $2 million. So when you take a look at our year-to-date budget, which is about $2 million, but we have, costs that are involved in that. We have the stop loss insurance, administrative fees. So when you take a look at that, the total cost, you're at almost $2.2 million. So that's an unfavorable amount of about almost $186,000 through May. 162,800, yeah. So we're using that up. Yep, currently, yep. Mm-hmm. And then when you take a look at the last 7 years, through May, we are the highest out of those seven years. So this year, the health insurance costs, significantly increased. So, and that's it. Do I have any questions?
No, great job again.
Thank you.
The medical, is it more claims or bigger?
Well, we do have more participants this year, so I would have to say there's probably, if you just compare it to last year, we probably have more claims. But we do have, this year, we had 2 hit the stop loss amount. So, and with inflation, the costs are now getting, they're now hitting the healthcare market because we get billed, they're sometimes billed 3 months later. So those costs are now hitting, this current fiscal year and potentially into next. Yeah, if I go back there, I do show, the average amount per, claim. So just for May, the average amount was, almost $2,300. So you can take a look each month, you know, I put in a, you know, average claim. So,
Any other questions for Linda? No, good job. Thanks again, Linda. Will this be, are you, sometimes you've done it on the website.
oh, yeah, it's,
You're gonna
yeah,
put
so
that-
that will, you know, those
Those numbers.
expenditures will show up, yeah. Again, I don't know what happens with that, but.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And that meeting is adjourned.